It's time for another quick take, ladies and gentlemen. The 2018 men's tennis season is upon us, which means it's time to preview the whole damn thing. You know when you start a new TV season and you forget everything that happened in the last season? Well, the same thing happens in tennis, and this video should act as a pretty nice refresher for you all. I'll go over everyone inside the top 10, as well as hitting on some guys outside the top 10, your Novak Djokovic's of the world, your Andy Murray's of the world, or anyone who I believe could make the jump into the top 10 and contend for majors. Anyone worthy of our attention, I will hit on in this video. I'll let you know what I expect of them in 2018, as well as rehashing what they accomplished in 2017. Before I really get started, let me throw this nugget at you. At the start of 2017, the top 5 men, this is in order, were Andy Murray, Novak Djokovic, Milos Raonic, Stan Wawrinka, and Kei Nishikori. None of them finished the year inside the top 5. Every single top 5 player at the start of last season lost their top 5 positioning. It was a crazy season marked by injury. I'd say that was the main storyline of 2017. It was health. Who could stay healthy and who could not stay healthy. So we start with Rafa Nadal, the #1 player in the world. And nobody would have predicted, once again, in the beginning of 2017, that Nadal would finish the year world #1. It was an incredible season for Rafa. 2 majors in 2017. He won the French Open and the US Open. The only thing that could have been better, well, really there were 2 things. One of them was he was 0-4 against Roger Federer. Believe it or not, it would have been an even better year if he had beat Federer in the 5-set epic that was the Australian Open final, and obviously could have done a little bit better in some of the 1000s tournaments if he was able to defeat Roger Federer. Nonetheless, what a year for Rafa. The other thing, I said there were 2 things he could have, that could have been better. The other thing was his health at the tail end of 2017. He pulled out of the Paris Masters, and then he pulled out of the year-end championships. And it was his knee that was bothering him. His knee, has bothered him periodically, really throughout his entire career. So going into 2018, I expected that he gets healthy for an offseason and picks up where he left off. However, it hasn't been so easy from a health perspective, clearly, for Nadal, which is something that I'm a little bit surprised at. Not shocked, but surprised. You would think a 2-month offseason and he'd be good to go. Unfortunately, it's not the case. In 2018, he's pulled out of a warm-up event in Abu Dhabi, and then he had to pull out of Brisbane, which is his big warm-up tournament before the Australian Open. He is in Melbourne trying to get healthy. I think he expects to play the Australian Open, but it's a little bit disconcerting that with, after an entire offseason, his knee is still bothering him, something that was bothering him at the beginning of, at the end of 2017. So ultimately, here's my prediction for Nadal. I think he gets healthy for the French Open, and I think he wins the French Open. However, I think that's his lone major in 2018. That's not necessarily a failed season for Nadal, but not the revelation that the 2017 season was. I think he'll only win that one major. Here's the reason. I don't think he's healthy enough to win the Australian Open. Just because, he hasn't played those warm-ups and he had to pull out. Grass is always tough on him. The grass will continue to be tough for him. And then the US Open, it's the most physical major of the year. It's at the end. It's on the tough hard courts. You have the heat in New York, and ultimately I don't really think that suits Rafa Nadal. Now, he won the US Open last year. I know you're looking at me like I'm crazy, but he was blessed with good health last year. I'm not positive he can duplicate that this year come US Open time. And the draw was quite friendly to him once again. Now, the draw was friendly to him because no one was healthy, and he was. So full credit to Nadal for the US Open run. He did have to beat Juan Martín del Potro, but there's no reason to think that he'll be favorited come US Open time. I don't believe that'll be the case. Moving on to the #2 player in the world, Roger Federer, similar to Nadal, a revelation of 2017, a dominant 2017. If you look at the rankings, by the way, it's Federer and Nadal and a huge point gap between the next guy down. I actually have it written down here. 4,455 points separate Roger Federer, number 2 in the world, and Grigor Dimitrov, the number 3 player in the world. Federer, won 2 majors and 3 Masters titles in 2017. The 2 majors were the Australian Open and Wimbledon. But unfortunately, similar to Nadal, health became a problem at the end of 2017. His body broke down, and it made for an inconsistent post-Wimbledon season. Now, the good news for Federer is that, unlike a lot of the other top men, he has seemingly had a very healthy winter, at least winter here in New York, a very healthy offseason, and he's looked good at the Hopman Cup. He's played all the warm-ups that he's intended to play. So right now, Federer appears to be fresh and in good health. So here's my prediction. I think he'll win 1 major in 2017. I think it'll be the Australian Open or Wimbledon. I expect him to completely skip the clay court season once again. And I think just like Nadal, the US Open is too physical to favor Roger Federer to win. There's a couple of different kinds of endurance. There's endurance during a point. How's your shot tolerance? Can you withstand a 30-shot rally and continue to go strong? There is endurance over the course of a match. Can you play a 4-hour match? Can you still be playing at a high level come time for the 5th set? And then there's endurance over the course of the season. I think it's pretty clear at this point in Roger Federer's career that Federer's endurance over the course of the season is not as strong as it used to be. So the US Open, I think it's going to be difficult for Nadal. I think it's going to be difficult for Federer. I know that people probably thought after I got done with Nadal, I'm favoring Federer over Nadal again. No, I'm not. I think it's going to be tough for both of them at the US Open. So I think Federer, similar to Nadal, will win 1 major this season. I think he'll win either the Australian Open, which I think I will favor him to win this Australian Open, or I think it'll be Wimbledon. I don't think he's a heavy enough favorite to win both, but it's entirely possible that he can repeat at both majors. My official prediction, 1 major for Roger Federer in 2018. Number 3, Grigor Dimitrov. He had his breakout season in 2017, 26 years old. We've been waiting a while for Dimitrov to break out, and last year was finally the year. He finished the season with a year-end championship title. He won Cincinnati, but was upset by Andrei Rublev in the 2nd round of the US Open. His best major result was the Aussie Open semifinal, and he drew Federer. He drew Federer there, and he also drew Federer at Wimbledon. So similar to Nadal, Dimitrov could have had an even better season if he didn't lose to Roger Federer at two of the 4 majors in 2017. Once again, he's the number 3 player in the world, but there's a lot of ranking points that separate him and Federer and Nadal at the top. So here's my prediction for Dimitrov. If the serve is right, Grigor Dimitrov should be the 2nd favorite to win Wimbledon. He's got all the skills to do it. So that means if Roger Federer is injured, if Roger Federer is upset, if anything happens to Roger Federer, I think Dimitrov is the guy to win Wimbledon in 2018. With that being said, he played awesome hard-court tennis at the end of last season. He's got an all-around game. He can attack, he can defend. I think his serve is the biggest wild card in his game. He can serve great. He can serve poorly. I've seen him do both. So how will his serve be? If he can find some consistency with that shot, Grigor Dimitrov should have an awesome 2018, and he should be a mainstay, or at least he can be a mainstay in the top 5. I predict that Dimitrov will be the 2nd favorite to win Wimbledon this season. Alexander Zverev, probably the breakout player of 2017. He won 5 titles. 2 of them were Masters 1000s. That was Rome on clay, Canada on hard, so also quite impressive that you get it on 2 different surfaces. Everyone recognizes the talent this guy has, but in the majors, he didn't have much success. He lost to Nadal in the Australian Open round of 32. No shame in that. Rafa was playing great tennis there. But then after that, Verdasco, first round upset at the French Open. Raonic at Wimbledon, and Raonic wasn't in great form at the time, even though I picked Raonic to win that match. And then Borna Coric in the second round of the U.S. Open, another young gun, but someone that Zverev was expected to beat, especially after capturing that title in Canada before the U.S. Open. So I think what really holds Zverev back is his physicality in the 2-week 5-set format. Other than that, the dude's golden, and he's really primed for success. So here's my prediction. I think he makes a step up in 2018. I think he makes 2 major semifinals, but still, I don't think he'll be physically ready to win a major in 2018. He could easily prove me wrong, but I think more 2019 is Alexander Zverev's time to win his first major. Dominic Theim, the number 5 player in the world. He won 1 title in 2017. That was in Rio. He did beat Novak Djokovic in a semi-final run at Roland Garros, where he lost to Nadal. I think Thiem's excellent on clay. You know, obviously beating Nadal is a a tough task, would be underselling it. And he was very consistent in the majors. He never lost before the round of 16 in a major, and he played in all 4. That's incredibly impressive. He's really young, but his body is fully developed. He's an incredible athlete. He's built thick. He's got a great frame, and I think he really is built for those majors. So here's my prediction. Dominic Theim will be the second favorite to win the French Open after Rafa Nadal. I think he'll be right there after Nadal. So similar to my prediction for Dimitrov, if anything happens to Nadal, if he's upset, if he's injured, Dominic Theim can win the French Open in 2018. He plays a lot of tournaments, so, you know, it'll be interesting to see where his kind of, you know, if he's able to, how he manages his schedule, and, you know, if that becomes a strength of his or a weakness of his. Does he play too much? Does it affect his health? Does it affect his fatigue? Or does it work in his favor because he's, you know, maintains a high ranking spot and it results in good draws for the majors? You know, it'll be an interesting season for Dominic Theim, another player who broke out in 2017, and he's got a really bright future. So once again, I think Roland Garros, if that could be the one for Theim, but Nadal, of course, an overwhelming favorite. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Number 6, Marin Cilic. He won a single title in 2017. Of course, his biggest accomplishment was making the Wimbledon final. Unfortunately, he got blown out by Roger Federer in that match, and he was sort of unimpressive after that tough loss to Federer. He was upset by Diego Schwartzman at the U.S. Open, and then down the stretch, post-U.S. Open, he was upset by the likes of Adrian Manarino and Julian Benneteau. He was also 0-3 at the year-end finals. So I'm not sure he mentally recovered from that brutal loss to Roger Federer in the Wimbledon final. My prediction is... It's a dumb prediction. I'll tell you what. I almost got nothing on Marin Cilic. I don't know if he's going to be refreshed after this offseason. You know, he's been injured in the past. I don't know if he's going to stay healthy in 2018. I really don't know what to expect. If you look at where his ceiling's at, you know, he's dangerous on every single surface. You know, he's in his prime still. I think he's 28 or 29 years old. So Cilic could technically be a dominant player in 2018. I could also see him kind of continuing what we saw post-Wimbledon and completely falling off. So my prediction for Marin Cilic is that he'll finish inside the top 5 or outside the top 10. Do with that what you will. I apologize. I have no idea what's going to happen with Marin Cilic in 2018. Number 7, David Goffin. If you really look at his resume in 2017, it's among the most impressive there is. He actually missed Wimbledon. So he started outside the top 10. He missed Wimbledon. He still had a breakout season and broke into the top 10. He won 2 titles after the U.S. Open. he made the final of the ATP year-end final, so he lost to Grigor Dimitrov at the year-end championships. And he also, this doesn't count in the rankings, but I mean, it counts for me. He dominated Davis Cup. He was 6-0 in Davis Cup singles rubbers, led Belgium to the finals. He would have finished, once again, with a higher ranking if he hadn't missed Wimbledon. So a very, very impressive year for David Goffin. My prediction is that his ranking will stay between 15 and 5. I think that, you know, he'll kind of be a very steady player for the next 3-4 years. I don't think we'll see him, you know, surprise us very often, whether that be an early upset or whether that be a late, you know, run deep into a major, into the second weekend, a semifinal run. I don't think Goffin will do the former very often or the latter very often. He could be sort of like a David Ferrer, you know, a very steady player who just doesn't have enough firepower to really contend for major titles. But Goffin was so impressive in 2017, I cannot argue with his results. So, you know, this is a guy who is threatening to almost everyone, but not quite everyone. So Goffin could be a top 10 player in 2018 and years beyond. A wise man once said Jack Sock would never be a top 10 player. That wise man was me, and he was wrong. Number 8, Jack Sock, the American, won 3 titles in 2017. That's an impressive number. He won the Paris Masters, although he did not beat a top 15 opponent. So, once again, 2017 was riddled with injuries, and Jack Sock took full advantage of that. Full credit to him. You know, so did guys like David Goffin, who won 2 titles post-US Open. These guys, and so did Nadal and Federer. Federer had sort of an easy draw at Wimbledon. Nadal had sort of an easy draw at US Open. If you stayed healthy in 2017, you had success. Jack Sock was one of those players who stayed healthy. He was most impressive at Indian Wells, where he defeated Kei Nishikori and Grigor Dimitrov. So that was a very impressive tournament for him. My prediction is that he'll fall out of the top 10. Once again, I think Jack Sock took advantage of the climate in 2017, a climate that saw the field kind of depleted by injury. Hopefully Jack Sock had a good offseason and, improved some things and proves me wrong. But I think if he maintains the level that he's sort of shown, that he showed last year, I actually think he'll fall outside the top 10 in 2018. Number 9, Stan Wawrinka, the Stanimal. He did not play post-Wimbledon, but before that, he was pretty impressive, to say the least. So, number 9, Stan Wawrinka. He did not play post-Wimbledon in 2017, but before that, he was pretty impressive. He only won 1 title, but he made the Aussie Open semifinal, he made the Indian Wells final, and he made the French Open final, where he lost to Rafael Nadal. So, Stan Wawrinka was in form before his knee injury knocked him out of Wimbledon. He actually, lost in the first round at Wimbledon, and then he had knee surgery following Wimbledon. He's 32 years old, so I'm concerned about Stan Wawrinka. I don't know how you can't be. My prediction for him is that he'll have to manage his schedule in 2018, and a healthy year will be a successful year for Stan. Hopefully he's able to kind of maybe use this year as sort of a transitioning year, and then maybe 2019 is a better year for Stan. But I predict that Wawrinka won't maintain his top 10 ranking in 2018. If he's healthy, then obviously he'd be a candidate to actually rise in the rankings from that number 9 spot. But I gotta think at 32 years old after a knee surgery, unfortunately, I cannot give Stan the benefit of the doubt. Our last top 10 player, the Spaniard Pablo Carreno Busta. He had success in the majors, and he won 1 title in 2017, made a French Open quarter and the US Open semis. Most of his rankings points come from those 2 tournaments. But after the US Open, he had a 1-7 match record, so he really stumbled at the end of 2017. I think my prediction is he'll continue to be a tough out in the majors. He's a very physical player, and he makes a lot of balls. So you don't want to draw Pablo Carreno Busta in the majors, but in terms of titles, I don't think he is really cut out to win anything beyond maybe a 500 event in 2018, and I'm not sure that'll be enough for him to maintain his top 10 ranking. Number 11, Juan Martín del Potro. I think this guy is definitely worth a mention. One title in 2017, his biggest win, and it was a really big one. He beat Roger Federer in the US Open to make the semifinal there. The question is with Del Potro, how far can he go with that weak backhand wing? Del Potro is almost at the point where he's made a full recovery in most aspects of his game. His movement is back. He's been healthy. His forehand's big. He's he's serving as big as he normally does. So that's why we saw Del Potro kind of get back into the mix at the end of 2017. But those wrist injuries are still a major crutch for Del Potro on the backhand side. How far can Del Potro climb with a compromised backhand wing? I'm really not quite sure. I think he'll get back into the top 10, but he will struggle against the big guns. So I think he'll beat a lot of guys in 2018, but ultimately, when it comes to the major quarterfinals and the major semifinals, when he plays the Rafael Nadals of the world, like he did in the US Open semifinal, it's going to be hard to beat those guys with a compromised backhand wing. Novak Djokovic, the number 12 player in the world. And that sounds really, really weird leaving my mouth, but Djokovic did not stay healthy in 2017. Before that, he didn't have much success either. He was upset in the second round of the Australian Open by Denis. Then he lost to Nick Kyrgios in the round of 16 at Indian Wells. He pulled out of Miami. He lost to Goffin in Monte Carlo. He lost to Nadal in Madrid, Zverev in Rome, and then Dominic Theim blew him out of the water in the French Open quarterfinal. And then finally, his year ended with a quarterfinal loss to Tomas Berdych at Wimbledon. So for most players, the resume that I just rattled off wouldn't be the end of the world, but for Novak Djokovic, it felt like the sky was falling. There were rumors of personal problems, off-the-court issues, and, up until the point where he, said that he wouldn't be playing for the rest of the season after Wimbledon, we basically thought that nothing was wrong with him physically and that it was mostly mental. He had never mentioned his elbow. But then, after Wimbledon, he admitted that his elbow had been bothering him for the better part of a year and a half. So, he did the right thing. He took the rest of 2017 off. And I expected Novak Djokovic to make a full recovery in 2018. He has a knack for using the offseason to his advantage, to take full advantage of the time off, eating right, training right, and coming out of the offseason with a bang. He has so much success in the Australian Open traditionally, and who can forget the run that he went on in 2012 after going gluten-free, transforming his game completely, and having one of the best starts in tennis history. I was ready to say, Novak Djokovic is coming back. And I am shocked to tell you that Djokovic's elbow still isn't right. I am completely surprised by this because normally, the elbow is elbow tendonitis, and I don't know if it's more than tendonitis, but the elbow normally doesn't concern me at the professional level. But, in 2018, Djokovic withdrew from Doha, so that was his warm-up for the Australian Open, and he says his elbow still hurts. So I don't really know what to make of that. However, my prediction for Djokovic is that he's healthy by US Open time, and he comes back, and he's a favorite by that time of the year, and that Djokovic wins the US Open. Djokovic should be back. There's no reason that he won't be. I don't think that wear and tear has completely caught up with him like it may have with Andy Murray, who I'm going to get to next. I think that the mental problems should be ironed out by now. I think a break from the game was probably healthy for Djokovic, and it's just an elbow. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this will hinder him for the rest of his career, and this is going to be a major problem. But for God's sakes, I've never seen an elbow, really derail a player's career. I mean, and I'm sure it's happened, but to me, Djokovic will overcome this, and by U.S. Open time, he'll be a favorite. But, how will he be in the first half of the year? I don't know. He says his elbow still hurts. For Djokovic, I think it'll be about health. But when Djokovic gets healthy, I think he'll get back to being one of the best players in the world. Now we skip ahead. Number 16 in the world, Andy Murray. A very sad start to 2018. Andy Murray's going to have hip surgery in the upcoming weeks, or maybe it's already happened, but he announced that he was having hip surgery yesterday. So not the start that he wanted, or that anybody wanted for that matter. But let's quickly remind ourselves of what happened in 2017 with Murray. He was upset in the round of 16 at the Australian Open. Then he won Dubai. But after that, it was a struggle. He lost in the first round at Indian Wells to Pospisil. Then he was defeated by Ramos Vinolas in Monte Carlo. Lost to Coric in Madrid and Fognini in Rome. Then he had a semifinal run at the French. There he lost to Stan. And then finally a quarterfinal loss to Sam Querrey at Wimbledon. He was going to play the U.S. Open. He tried to play the U.S. Open, but he had to withdraw 2 days out, and then he never played again in 2017. And then early in 2018, he withdrew from the Australian Open. And then yesterday, I believe, news broke that Andy Murray would have hip surgery. So my prediction for Murray is that he'll finish 2018 outside of the top 50. He's eyeing a return at the U.S. Open, but Murray is, first of all, this is very serious. This could be the end of Murray's career as a contender to win majors. Very easily could be that. The hip, unlike the elbow, is something that, on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of panic, it's like an 8. Knees and hips are like an 8. In fact, hips might be even more worrisome than knees. So Murray has hip problems. It could be very, very bad. I think he comes back for the U.S. Open, hopefully just uses the end of this year to get healthy and has a good offseason and is maybe back to contendership in 2019. But for 2018, Andy Murray will probably finish the year outside the top 50. Number 21, Nick Kyrgios, the Australian phenom, a common topic on this channel. Why are you still talking about Nick Kyrgios? He's always disappoints. He never does anything in the majors. Well, it's true. He did not make it past the second round in a major in 2017, and he played all 4. Just shocking from a guy of his talent level. But at the same time, he has wins over Zverev, Nadal, and Djokovic in 2017. I mean, this guy continues to show flashes of brilliance. He won 3 titles in 2017. He's kicked off 2018 with a title in Brisbane, beat Grigor Dimitrov just a couple days ago. So this guy has top 5 talent and, oftentimes doesn't perform at a top 20 level. It's an enigma. Now, I feel that 2017 was the most mature year we've seen out of Nick Kyrgios mentally. But I think that it was mostly the health that hindered Kyrgios. So he had a lot of hip problems. He continues to have some hip problems. I think that Kyrgios has overcome a major hurdle in his career, and that is the mental immaturity. I think we'll still see him relapse. We'll still see him blow up and lose matches because of poor shot selection and, poor energy management and whatnot. But for the most part, Nick Kyrgios has matured at a very high rate. So I think that a lot of those struggles, most of them at least, are behind him. But Nick Kyrgios needs to be willing to put in the work with the physio in the gym. Nick Kyrgios needs to get healthy. If Kyrgios' fitness holds up in 2018, if he has worked hard on his fitness, if he continues to work hard in his fitness, which I'm not convinced he does, he will break into the top 10 in 2018. I have no doubt about it. So, to me, mental maturity, overcome. Fitness, That's the next mountain for Nick Kyrgios to climb. He needs to climb that mountain. He needs to put in the work. If you don't work hard in the gym, you're not going to stay healthy, in men's tennis. You're just not at this level. You will get injured if you don't put in the work at the gym. And I think Kyrgios is a good natural athlete. He has good movement, but he really needs to put in that work. If he does not, I think he'll break into the top 10 and could even win majors in 2018. My prediction for him is, once again, if he's fit, if I say at the end of the year that Nick Kyrgios was healthy, he'll be in the top 10. If not, he'll toil outside the top 10 like we've seen him do in the last 2 years. Last guy going all the way to ranking number 51, Denis Shapovalov. Played most of 2017 on the Challengers Tour, but once he emerged, boy did he emerge. He's still looking for that first ATP World title, but he beat Rafa Nadal en route to a Montreal semifinal run. There he lost to Zverev. Then he qualified for the US Open and made the round of 16, where he lost to Pablo Carreno Busta. My prediction for him is that he will break into the top 10 in 2018. I don't have, much to go off of besides the fact that this dude has top 10 weapons. He has a big forehand, one of the best one-handed backhands from a lefty I've ever seen. He serves huge, so I think you can count on this guy to hold serve. And, I think he impressed me enough at the end of the year where I think Shapovalov will be someone who will break into the top 10 in 2018. We'll see if I'm right. Two guys who I kind of left out because they're injured, and, I think that they're worth mentioning, but only very briefly. Nick Kyrgios and Milos Raonic are those players. Both right now dealing with wrist injuries. Both players just haven't been able to stay healthy. And so my prediction, I don't think they're worthy of a prediction in 2018. We'll see if they can stay healthy. Right now they have not shown that they can do that. Two other likely risers. I mentioned Denis Shapovalov. I think that I'm most confident with him breaking into the top 10, but watch out for Borna Coric and watch out for Andrei Rublev. Rublev, perhaps just as bright as Shapovalov. I just haven't watched him enough, so I'm not completely comfortable making a final judgment on Rublev. I look forward to watching him more at the Australian Open. And Coric, I've been waiting a while for him to take that next step. I think we'll see a slower rise from Coric, but both of these guys I expect to finish 2018 inside the top 20. All right, here we go. We're done previewing individual players. It's time for the great reveal, my top 10, something that will undoubtedly be very, very wrong. There it is, folks. Number 1, Roger Federer. The only reason I leapfrogged Nadal with Federer is that Federer is healthier at the moment. That is legitimately the only reason. There is nothing else other than Rafa Nadal has had to pull out of warm-up tournaments and Roger Federer has not. But I kept Nadal and Federer at the top. There's a really big gap in terms of points between Federer, Nadal, and Dimitrov. And I do think that they are the surest bets to win majors. Outside of Federer and Nadal, who I both think will capture at least one, I'm not completely confident in saying that any of the others will win a major in 2018. I think 2 other players will, because my official prediction is that Federer will win 1 and Nadal will win 1. I'm just not completely sure who those players are. Number 3, Grigor Dimitrov. I think, that's a likely candidate to win one of those other 2. Then you got Alexander Zverev at number 4. I expect him to kind of hold down the fort at that number 4 ranking. He did finish 2017 at number 4, and I think he'll stay put. There you see Novak Djokovic. I have him at number 5. This is probably the most interesting guy inside this top 10, because I think Djokovic will really make up ground at the end of 2018, and I think he'll rise to number 5. He'll be on his way up. Number 6, Marin Cilic. It's another guy that stayed put, and you might be thinking, wait, wasn't your prediction that Cilic would be inside the top 5 or outside of the top 10? Look, leave me alone when it comes to Cilic, all right? Leave me alone. I don't know. I'm sorry. Number 7, Dominic Theim. I have him falling just because, he's another guy. I think he kind of took advantage of the climate. But Thiem plays a lot of tournaments, so I think 7 is probably a worst-case scenario for Thiem. Juan Martín del Potro at number 8. I think he'll rise modestly in 2018 because I think del Potro has been a little bit more consistent and has hit a groove at least here in his career. But I do think that he'll be capped, outside of the top 5, whereas earlier in his career, I thought maybe he wasn't capped anywhere and that he would eventually achieve that world number 1. At this point, with the wrist injuries, there's definitely a ceiling for del Potro under that world number 1 ranking spot. Number 9, Nick Kyrgios. So I'm giving Kyrgios the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say he has a year full of health and fitness. Once again, I'm not sure that's going to happen, but if it does, I expect Kyrgios to be around number 9. And then at number 10, I mentioned that Denis Shapovalov, I believe, would break into the top 10, and there you have it. So there you have it. There's my top 10. Leave your top 10 in the comments if you'd like. I'm sure you'll be just as wrong as me. It's so hard to predict off seasons. It's so hard to predict injuries, but that's what we love about tennis. Who would have thought that Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal would dominate 2017? Nobody thought that would happen, and that's exactly what happened. There's only one guarantee for the 2018 season, and that'll be I got you covered with all the content that I love to deliver to you guys and that hopefully you love to consume. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Stay tuned for that Australian Open preview.